Around this time of year, from the winter solstice to New Year's Day, took place one of the most important Hobbit festivals, the Yuletide. During Yuletide, the Hobbits of the Shire celebrated the coming of the new year, and while gathered together, bid the old one farewell. It was perhaps one of the most important festivals of Hobbit life, though it was also celebrated by the race of men from whom the Hobbits acquired the holiday. Yuletide was so important to the Hobbits that it defined a large part of the Hobbit calendar itself, with our equivalent of December being known as For Yule, and January as After Yule. And even more notably than that, while the Hobbit calendar divided the year into 12 months like ours, the tracking of the months themselves was quite different. In the Shire, each month had 30 days, always, which amounted to 360 days, and therefore left out either 5 or 6 whole days without any corresponding month. These days, the Hobbits always dedicated to their festivals and celebrations throughout the entire year, and in fact, when they came up, they were their own separate thing entirely, and not part of the Monday to Sunday dating system. Actually, due to this reform of excluding these holidays entirely from the calendar, the Hobbits managed to maintain a consistent system in which every year the days and weeks were always the exact same, with January 1st, for example, always being a Sunday. Other holidays within those 5 to 6 non-calendar days also included the summer solstice and mid-years, but for the purposes of this video, we'll stick to Yule. Now, one thing that you may have noticed while reading The Lord of the Rings, and which you may have found peculiar, is that Tolkien uses our real-life months and days for his fantasy world. In actuality, however, this isn't the case. The in-universe explanation is that there are Hobbit words for all of the different months and days of the week, but Tolkien simply provided us with an equivalent English translation as part of his effort to translate Bilbo and Frodo's Red Book. Tolkien actually had custom names for pretty much everything, but for the main story opted to go for the English translation of his made-up names. This is why the Fellowship is reported as leaving Rivendell on December 25th, why the ring is destroyed on March 25th, and why Bilbo and Frodo's birthdays are on September 22nd. Curiously, although Tolkien himself did not shy away from using important Christian dates for notable events within the story, such as the birth of Christ and December 25th, or the Annunciation of the Virgin by Gabriel and the Crucifixion for March 25th, he was clear that when his books are translated, the word Yule should always be translated into something not openly referring to the Christian holidays. Although, if I were to take a guess, Tolkien must have seen a difference between choosing certain symbolic dates and misguiding the reader into thinking that specific Hobbit holidays, such as Yule, were actually Christmas, on a literal level. This is because, as you can imagine, Christ has not been born yet in the context of Middle-earth. Having explained enough of the Hobbit calendar, perception of time, as well as Tolkien's considerations, what would Yule actually look like for the Hobbits of the Shire? Well, Yule, which is also a Tolkien translation for the actual Hobbit word, refers to the 2 days of the year that are a part of no month, as we mentioned earlier. These days occur in between of last year and the new year, and are called Yule 1 and Yule 2 respectively. As the previous year ends, always on Thursday the 30th, the next day is the first day of Yule, or Year's End, which the Hobbits dedicated to celebrating the last year, feasting and much family time. The day after was Yule 2, or Year's Day, and it was dedicated to greeting the coming year with merriment and excitement, with the Hobbit here too coming together in celebration. These 2 days, however, were not the entirety of the festival. The Yuletide as a whole began at around the time of the winter solstice, and would span the better part of an entire week, starting 2 days before the Yule's days themselves and ending 2 days later. While not many of the specifics of these holidays are known, it is implied that they were quite similar to our own Christmas holidays. For example, in the Yule celebrations that took place during the Hobbit at the home of Beren, it is noted that the celebrations were warm and merry, and that people from all around came together to celebrate. This, of course, is in line with the community-oriented character of the Hobbits, and gives you a glimpse at how these holidays were held in the Shire itself. In fact, the matter of the Yuletide feast was so important to the Hobbits that it became an important consideration as a result of the War of the Ring and the scouring of the Shire. Following the fall of Sauron and the completion of their quest, the Hobbits returned to their beloved Shire, only to find it oppressed and polluted by the forces of Saruman and his minions. This large-scale desecration of the Hobbit way of life, as well as authoritarian treatment of its people and hoarding of resources by the Saruman regime, led to the Hobbits worrying if there would be enough food to go around in time for the Yuletide. This is because the scouring was resolved on November 3rd, which would only give the Hobbits about a month to adequately prepare for the holidays. Thankfully, however, the Yuletide celebrations were spared after a large storage of food and drink was discovered in, among other places, the Mikkeldelving, which was the largest town of the Shire. As such, the Yule of 3019 and the celebrations for the year 3020 and the very last of the Third Age were saved, and Tolkien notes in The Return of the King that there was a great deal better cheer that Yule than anyone had hoped for. A massive thank you to my channel members. Thank you very much for watching, and have a very Merry Christmas.